Hello, and thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective. We are in a generation where people have the ability to use social media platforms for something important. It's using your influence. So, what kind of advice do influencers give then to brands on social media? Are you, as a brand, creating an impact and adding value when posting on social? What is your purpose? Jen Marilla is an impact travel influencer and blogger, brand and social media consultant, and founder and storyteller of the Social Girl Traveler. And on this episode, we'll discuss brand voice, growing an Instagram following, the shift in content creation and value of social posts, engagement, stories, hiring influencers, hiring the right social media managers, Oprah, Cuba, and much, much more. So let's tune in to a Social Girl Traveler with a very social shark on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Jen, thank you so much for joining me today on A Shark's Perspective. So if you would, tell us a little bit about your background and your career to date.
Yes, hi Kenneth. I'm so happy to be here.
You
I'm
bet.
really excited. So my blog is called The Social Girl Traveler. She is my baby. She's been around. I created her almost 5 years now. Born and raised New Jersey. Lived and worked in New York City. I worked in the corporate world of New York for about, I would say, 5 to 6 years. Prior to that, I had graduated from undergrad and I went to do my master's in London, did my thesis, moved back to New York, and started working in the corporate world, and was at my last and final corporate job for about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And I left in 2015. And before I had left, I decided that the reason I left was because I, on a personal note, really felt like I wanted more to do with life. Like this wasn't going to be it. I didn't just want to do the, you know, 9 to 5 and all the things. I wanted to do more with my life.
Sure.
And so I set up a plan, quit my job, and started traveling the world. And at this point, I had been, I had been following a ton of travel bloggers, and I thought to myself, like, if they can do it, I can do it. Or, why not, right? Why the hell
Yeah.
not? This is 25 years old. Like, I had nothing to lose, except a couple of $1,000. I actually left with $14,000, um, and that lasted me for about 11 months.
Wow.
Uh, yes, which is pretty awesome.
That is pretty
And
good.
yeah, and so I left. I started traveling, and I started to create content. And content meant photography, video, and like posting on social media. During my whole travel that first year, a lot of what I did, besides grow my blog and my following and all this stuff,
And
was
hitchhike.
and hitchhike, yes, is social media management. So I was working with small businesses and like doing social media content and management and all the things that are related to social media. But it actually worked because a year later, the Huffington Post picked up an article that I pitched to them, and then that catapulted my career. And in this year, I was making money. Obviously, not to the point that I am now, but it actually did work. And I remember thinking a year after, like, holy shit balls, it worked. I was like,
Yeah.
now what? Now what do I do? Now how do I see this baby grow even more? And like what do I want for myself? And so yeah, so lo and behold, 4 years later, here I am, the Social Girl Traveler blog, and I travel the world and I get paid to travel, but I'm not just a travel blogger.
For a lot of bloggers, blogging itself doesn't, for the most part, translate
Right.
into an income.
Yeah.
But the other social channels, where were you sort of hitting it to where you realized that you could make a living out of, posting pictures and photos and videos and everything else?
Well, so that's the thing. Like, we live in a generation where everyone's like, oh, influencer, influencer. And bloggers were the first influencers.
Sure.
And you're right. You don't make a lot of money off of it right away. But what you do make money off of it is the credibility and the audience and the way it grows and how
Agreed.
quickly you do that, right? So, yes, I had a blog because I needed that credibility. And I didn't just want to do the sponsored posts. I only make X amount of money off one Instagram sponsored post. But if I can give my client a sponsored post, a blog post, a Facebook post, a YouTube video, and 4 days of stories on Instagram, now we're talking money. And it's creating that whole brand, that whole story, and like just kind of being yourself, right? People see certain influencers for certain reasons, whether it's educational purposes or it's just inspiration or just because they think they're freaking funny. Um, and that's all tailored to that person and that influencer. So when you become a quote unquote blogger, it's really thinking about the bigger picture and being creative with how your income is going to start coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have never been able to make a living just by writing blog posts. That wouldn't have been feasible unless I wrote a lot of blog posts, which would have meant that I would have loved to write to that level, which I didn't. So yeah.
So, first of all, then, what in the world is an impact travel influencer?
It's this word that's actually my mentor and I made up one morning over coffee because I'm not just a regular travel blogger. I'm not posting about, I do post about those things, or I have in the past, the top 10 places to see in New York, where to go in New Jersey, all those things. I'm an influencer, impact traveler to me as a traveler that travels for purpose. So I carry clean water filters to developing
Yeah.
countries.
Good for you.
Yeah. And I create content around social issues around the world and how tourists can be part of that or help the situation for the better.
So, tactically, that's smart. I don't want to get, you know, I don't want to dive too much into that, but why was that an important thing for you to write about?
Um, truthfully, Kenneth, I didn't want to be just a travel blogger, another travel blogger.
Yeah.
Like to me, another girl in a bikini with a GoPro selfie is awesome, and I didn't want to be another one.
Oh,
Uh, I would have rathered.
shush.
I mean it. I mean it. I would have rathered, and I've taken selfies where I'm in like a ditch building a home in Guatemala. You know what I mean? And that to me meant more than anything else. I on a personal level, I believe that we are here for one another, and to some capacity. I don't believe that you should lay down the law for anyone else or let people walk all over you or anything like that. What I mean is that we just need to take care of each other a little bit more and be more mindful on all aspects. And so, yeah, for me, it was essentially like I want to serve and to my capacity as best as I can.
What are the channels that you've seen that have really propelled your growth and also helped, fund your income?
Um, yeah, so my strongest channel is Instagram because
Yeah.
I have at the moment 23,600 followers. And then from there it trickles down to Facebook. You
23601, because I just started following you.
okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So and then Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Pinterest.
Yeah.
Actually, it's probably Pinterest is probably the top one to be honest with you, which is a whole other conversation. But yeah, so my strongest platform is Instagram. So a lot of the people or brands that find me through there, and then they venture off to everything else, which would include like Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, all that stuff.
Well, one of the things, I mean, what drew me to you was obviously your thought leadership in social media, and specifically with Instagram. I know you speak at
Yep.
conferences about a lot of things like Instagram hacks and how to grow an audience. But so when you go work with brands,
Uh huh.
yeah, obviously it's different than when you're growing a social media following for a person. But
Right.
I know you do consulting with brands. When
Yeah.
you go, when you're speaking to them about why they're not growing their social media
Uh-huh.
presence online, what sort of, those top two or three things as to why brands are not growing their Instagram following?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So the first one is there's got to be a voice, right? A lot of brands just associate themselves that because they are a big brand, that there can't be one consistent voice, and that's not the truth. In fact, it's hurting them because we used to live in a day and age where it was business to business or B2C consumers, and now it's human to human, right? So, and I say that with the idea that you have to create the brand online to the as the person you're speaking to. I don't, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, for example, let's say you're AT&T. Who is your client, right? Who is your ideal person, and what is he or she doing? And I want like the nitty gritty. I want to know how much they're making, where they are, where they buy their groceries, how they spend their money. Are they married? Are they single? How much money do they make? How many kids do they have? Do they have boys? Do they have girls? Break it down to the psychology of the human so that when you create that brand voice, it's almost the exact same person. A lot of the people that come to me are a replica of me, literally a mirror of me. And I'm a big fan of being very cautious about what I put out there because, and I say this to anybody that I work with, is if you've got nothing good to say, and I don't mean like energetically or opinionated or anything, I just mean like if you feel like you don't know your brand or you don't know where you are, you're stuck in your business, etc., it projects. And there's something about the way you write and your language that reciprocates back to you. So if you're, example, if you're like a coach and you're trying to get clients, but you're stuck and you're not making money or you have some debt to pay, etc., the people that are going to come to want to work with you are going to be in the exact same boat. And so it's just about framing that language. So finding your voice. The second thing I would say is really the consistency. The consistency is huge, how often you're posting. And I don't mean like blowing up a news feed, posting 3 or 4 times a day, but a reasonable 2 times a day. What kind of value are you saying? There is a shift in the form of content. I tell people that when you're going to post something, ask yourself, what is the intention of this post? And I don't mean like subliminally. I mean like, if I'm going to read it, what am I going to walk away with? Am I going to be inspired? Am I going to learn something? Am I going to buy something from you? Like, what is going to be the end result?
Great point.
And when you start thinking like that, you start shifting the way you're communicating to your people.
Well, it's so much better than so many brands who are going to put something out twice a day just to put something out twice a day.
Exactly. I would rather you, and I tell this to my clients all the time, I would rather you post once a day and it be valuable than you post twice a day or 3 times a day just because you think you're going to get
brand babble.
No, absolutely not. Like there's 1 billion active monthly users on Instagram. You have to be able to stand out. And how do you do that? Providing value. So what kind of value are you talking about? Who is the person you're speaking to and what is their problem and how are you going to fix it?
So I think one of the things, at least for me, that I think that I've seen with a lot of people is they look at Instagram, and I'm curious your perspective. A lot of people look at Instagram from a personal perspective because they're able to, blow up their own user count.
Yep.
Differently than they do from a brand perspective. And it's more noticeable to me with Instagram than with YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or something like that. Why do you think that is? Is it more just because of the emergence with influencers, or is there some other kind of component that lives within the Instagram brand that is easier for people to grow up a personal following so much more quickly than a brand's following, and why are people sort of looking at it so differently?
That's such a good question. Yeah, it's definitely within the Instagram feature and it's the Instagram stories. I'm such a fan of stories, and I actually, my last presentation at the content marketing conference, I mentioned this as like a big point to make when working with influencers. Like, yes, as a brand, you should have, like, if you're working with influencers, you should have a sponsored post and all the things, but you want to have, it's almost more like a higher return investment for you to have a story with these influencers. And I mean like an IG story. The reason why people are better at creating a personal brand through Instagram than brands are is because they use stories, because it's one voice and it's one person. And stories allows you to really be yourself. Like if anybody ever watches my stories, there'll be some stories where I'm like all makeup out and I've like, I'm recording and I'll say like, okay, I'm recording. So I have like makeup on my face and I look decent and I'll go through the whole process. And then there are some days where you look at my stories and I rolled out of bed and I look like a hot mess. And I mean, by a hot mess, I mean like I literally look like a hot mess because I'm authentic to my brand. People that follow me know that, yes, I paint a beautiful picture of this life that I have, but I work for it. And that's where brands lack because they don't have a voice or they don't have a person or a face to the brand. They feel like they can't do that with stories. But I think they can. I mean, it's just about really honing in on or just choosing to want to have a face to the brand, etc. And there's definitely ways that you can do that. But I think that that's where personal brands are better and grow quicker than actual brands on Instagram.
Oh, if you only knew how many times I rolled out of bed and didn't get my hair done for Instagram with a super short haircut, it doesn't matter. So then what are some of the key metrics that you look at with brands to help them measure? Because I mean, as an influencer, I'm sure you probably have gotten tied to a lot of likes and shares and other vanity stuff that doesn't really matter in the world. But, how do you think that they ought to look at that kind of engagement?
So engagement is, for me, it's the biggest thing, right? Um, it, if you're a brand looking to work with an influencer, and I say this all the time, don't look at the number of followers they have. That should be the last thing you look at, right? The first thing should be is their content. What are they actually saying? And not on just like the first post, like do your homework, go, through 10 different posts, scroll back, 5 months ago, look and see what they're posting and what they're actually saying. Is it relatable to your brand? If it is, then the next thing you should be looking at are the comments. Are they asking questions? What are people asking them? How are they creating that conversation and that connection? The third thing is the likes. And then the fourth thing would be the following and the stories. And the reason why I say engagement is because at the end of the day, it's quality versus quantity. You are a brand, and you could just pay to do a sponsored post to get people to see your stuff. But if you want somebody to buy from you and you want to work with an influencer,
Mm-hmm.
the influencer has to be able to build that connection with their audience. And the only way they are going to do that is if they fall within your audience. And I mean 100% within your audience. If I get an alcoholic brand that reaches out to me, I've had before, I say no. Not because I don't like alcohol, but because it doesn't align with my brand at all. So it's not something I'm going to write a post about. I'm not going to write or take a photo with rum, Coke, or something like that. And that's the important thing is like figure out as a brand who the person that is representing you or being the face of your brand, do they align with you 100%?
So what about organic then? How do you tell people to increase, or tell brands rather, to increase their reach and their following organically?
Get involved. Get involved. Social media is meant to be social.
Yeah.
All these platforms, like I think it's so funny when they implemented the how much time you spend on social media. That's like such a marketing scheme. It's like I
Yeah.
roll my eyes when they say that. Because at the end of the day, in order for you to grow a following, you have to be on social media. So them telling you, oh, you spent 4 hours, oh man, shame on you. Like, no, that's what they want you to do. They want you to spend 4 hours on social media because the more you use it, the more eyeballs and the more money they make because your eyeballs are on their platform. The more sponsored posts you see, the more money they make off you clicking or liking, etc. So if you're a brand and you want to grow your audience, pay somebody to just be on social media. And that means creating conversations, posting, liking, and not just like liking anything, like strategically liking other brands and other influencers, other people within your industry that align with your brand. Um, and that goes across all your platforms. That goes across Facebook, that goes across LinkedIn, that goes across Pinterest, Instagram, all that stuff. So it's almost like a career within itself, or like a job title within itself, where somebody is just doing like customer or like human engagement. I would call it human engagement on social media.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of work. I mean, I spend, no joke, Kenneth, maybe 5 hours of my day on social media, and that's
Wow.
Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, just having conversations with people via direct message, commenting, sharing articles, like. And somebody once said to me, because this is I'm big on Facebook as well, and I'll go into Facebook groups and I won't post something, but I'll comment on other people. And I said to somebody one day, I said, it's not so much about being interesting, as in like I'm selling something, you should buy from me, etc., but being interested. So like working with your community, like talking to other people about other things that they're posting and just creating that engagement. So organically, that would be the best way to grow a following on social media.
And I could not agree with you more. Human interaction, that means for brands, this is something I've told people, do not ever allow anybody from your communications team to ever sit behind a social channel, because then they're going to stick in where you think, where a normal person would see a conversation, they're going to put in brand babble. Approved brand babble that they think that communications and legal and whoever your experts approve. Never do that, because it doesn't work.
That makes two of us. But there's certain conversations and certain things that don't need that for other different types of brands. And I think that's really different. Yeah.
So how should influencers, topic that I've spoken about at conferences, this is a topic that other influencer friends of mine speak about a lot, and to your point, How should a brand
Uh-huh.
go about finding you and contacting you to start that
Yeah.
and really start that conversation? Because I found a lot, and I found it very interesting when we took sort of a poll at a conference where I spoke about influencer marketing.
Uh-huh.
How many people were tentative or just didn't have the knowledge about to reach out to influencers?
Yeah, I thought that's so funny. Well, because typically what they do is they just have an intern message.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like,
Or their third party agency that handles some of their
yeah.
social. Yep.
Yeah, and it's like a robot, right?
Yeah.
So, we are humans.
Yeah.
I don't care how big of an audience you have, like you still see all the messages. I might not be following you back, but I still see all the messages that from the people that like don't follow me. So I see the perverted messages, I see the funny messages, I see it all. So the first attempt is through if that's the way you want to go about it. I'm okay with it. I'm not against it. It's through like a DM on social media,
Sure.
but making sure that you're actually a human and not a robot. Like, hey, my name is Michael Smith, and I work with so and so, and we're interested in working with you. Can I get an email address? And that for me, on an influencer's perspective, like keeps my eyeballs out on for this email and what's coming through, etc. The most professional way is obviously through email. Any influencer who is taking their business seriously has an email address, and works with brands. So they should have a system for working with brands and what to do, what not to do. I get pitched on a daily basis. A lot of the brands don't align with my brand. So there is my team has like an automatic copy and paste email where it's like, thank you so much for reaching out, but at the moment, we're not interested, or you don't align with my brand. Thank you very much. Anyways, like just very cutthroat, right? Um, but I always say to brands, like, make it short and sweet. You don't have to go crazy, because if we really want to work with you and if we see the alignment of the brand, we will respond right away. And then you can talk about contracts, negotiations, compensation, all those things.
What advice would you give a brand then on a best pitch to you and other influencers? How should they position their offering so that it is potentially likely to succeed?
Well, okay. I'm going to throw it back at you. Think of it as like a date, right? Obviously, when you reach out to someone and you want to take them on a date, you're not going to give them all the chocolates and the goodies all at once. You're going to be nice and sweet, and you're going to ask them, like, hey, I'd love to take you out to dinner. I'd love to take you for a coffee. I'd love to,
Aw,
your drink. So,
so
and it's
sweet.
the exact same way.
Yeah.
It's the exact same way, though, right? So when I pitch to brands with brands that I want to work with, I'm not telling them all the ideas and all the things that I want to do with them. I'm reaching out to
Thank
them.
you.
I'm stating who I am. I automatically say, like, I'd love to talk to a marketing director. I have these awesome ideas. I'm going to destination X, Y, and Z. I think you would fit well with the brand. Blah blah
So
blah.
smart. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the same way with an influencer, right? Come at me. Don't just send an automatic email, because a lot of brands do that. It's like a template email, and they've never even looked at me. They clearly do not match with my brand, but I'm just in like this email system that they got. I don't know what.
Yeah, they look at you, they say influencer, Instagram,
Right.
23,000 followers. Okay.
Yeah.
That next. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so it's not I wouldn't say that never works. That never works. And that's always annoying, because it's like, really, like, now I have to respond to you and tell you no, and I'm still going to get 7 more emails after that are robots
Right.
telling me that we would work well together, and it's like, no, we wouldn't, because again, you sell cigarettes and I don't even smoke. So like,
Yeah.
so that's not going to work. So yeah, so my business coach actually says the Oreo method, and it's, you compliment someone, you tell them what the problem is or the situation, and then you compliment them again. So I would say almost the exact same way. Like, come to me with like something about my brand that really interests you and that would align with your brand. Then set up a time. And like, when I say a time, like, don't tell me, oh, let's set up a time to talk. Like, no, give me a day and a time. I want to talk to you Monday between 5 and 8 o'clock at night. Do you understand? Because that way I have no rebuttal. I can't say no. You already taken, 3 steps ahead in the conversation.
So you as a paid influencer,
Right.
I'm sure you're approached in a lot of different ways with payments, either with cash on occasion or
Uh-huh.
trips and travel, because you're the social girl traveler. How do you
Right.
look at the incentives that brands offer to you? What works best? What are the things that you find that helps you drive the most ROI for them, and so on and so forth?
Yeah. So there's always two options. I always get pitched two different ways, right? A compensation, or it's like an exchange of product or service for media coverage, right? And I think that when you're first starting out, so when I was first starting out in this industry, in this world, a lot of the things I did take for free. And for free meaning like a product or service in exchange for media coverage.
Mm-hmm.
I was still working, but there was no actual like monetary value being exchanged. Um, and I did it for a while, and that's all fine because it obviously gave me content. It allowed me to grow my audience, etc. And by a while, I mean like maybe a few months. I don't think it's necessary anymore. Maybe if you really are just starting out and you don't have a following at all. But if you've reached a point that you have over, 10,000, even if you have over 5,000 followers,
Mm-hmm.
and you have quality content, like you are getting more likes than somebody with 10,000 to 15,000 followers, then I believe you should be paid for the compensation, because that saying that you pay for what you get for is absolutely true. And there's only so much free stuff you can get in exchange for offering and creating the value that you have.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, when I work with brands, like it's not just taking a photo with my iPhone, editing it and posting it. Like, no, I actually have professional cameras. I have a system, like a Lightroom system that I paid for that cost me $300, and I edit all the work. That takes time. It takes me 45 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to edit something. Then I have to sit there and create the captions. And it was actually really funny because the last conference I did, that was one of the questions. How long does it take me to post a post?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it literally takes me for each platform anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes. And that's with editing the photo, writing the caption, and then posting it, adding the hashtags, adding the tags, all that stuff. So it's time that I'm putting in and value. And that's just for an Instagram post. Imagine for when I have to do stories and I have to tag the brand. Imagine when I have to share on Facebook or LinkedIn. Imagine when I have to do an actual video that I'm editing.
Yeah.
So, free stuff is awesome. But at the end of the day, when you come to your clients or your influencers with a monetary compensation for the work that they're doing, they're going to put more value into it. And just like on a human level, like people just invest more if they're being paid for what the work that they're doing. I think this is psychologically the way we are.
So help people, and this goes to something you just said, but you talk about the prep time for doing it.
Right.
How do you go and make certain that something, maybe it is staged, but it's still authentic?
Oh, of course. Okay, so this was maybe a couple months ago. I had a brand that reached out to me, and I'm obviously not going to say any names, and they wanted me to try their products in exchange for a post and just like a story. So an Instagram story, and I charged them peanuts. And before I sent them an invoice or anything, I said, send me the product. I'm skeptical. I want to try it. And something told me, like, let me, just try it, see if you actually like it. And so I did. I tried the product, and they wanted to pay me, but I actually didn't like the product. So I didn't take their money, and I said to them, I really appreciate it. These are my recommendations, and I won't be posting about it. Now, I never mentioned, like in my Instagram stories, I never mentioned the name of the brand. I never mentioned what it was. I never showed any pictures or anything. But I did say this story because as an influencer, this is something that happens. And when we use the word authentic, what I mean is like my job is to put out good content and to be real with people. If I'm having a shitty experience at life or a situation, I'm not going to lie about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there should be, you know what I mean? Like I am human.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I think that when I say, I work with brands all the time, and there's certain things that have to be staged. And I just mean for photo purposes. Like if I have to wear a shirt or I have to like take a picture with a certain purse, like, yeah, that has to be staged. And I have to prepare for that. But that doesn't mean that I don't like the brand or that I wouldn't normally use it or anything like that. Like on the contrary, if I'm working with a lot of these brands, I use stories as a way to show how authentic I am about using the product. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
So then we've talked a little bit about corporate branding. Now let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about personal branding. And I know you also work with a lot of people who are trying to build their following.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't want to look at Instagram and I'm not a female, for example,
Right.
if I'm not an attractive female who wears a bikini in Aruba,
Right.
that's something you and I share in common. But for other people, how do I get to 10,000 followers quickly? What are some of the, the things that somebody can do from a personal standpoint to help build that following?
So it all depends on your business and who you're speaking to. So what
Exactly.
I mean by that is, let's say I'm gonna I don't
So
know. Let's
glad
say
you said that because so many people zero in on the number immediately
yeah,
without any other discussion or thought.
it's not like it's not just about Instagram, right? So let's say you're a male who has a bakery and you want to sell cupcakes, and your thing is your cupcake business. So you have to find out where your audience is, where and maybe you just want to sell recipes. I don't know, I'm pulling this out of my butt, right? So you just want to sell recipes, you want people to see how amazing your recipes are for cupcakes, etc. So who is your audience? Who's going to be cooking cupcakes for anybody? And it's usually moms. So where are they? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Based off wherever they are, that's where you need to show up the most. So if they're on Facebook, then you need to be posting pictures of your cupcakes. Maybe you get on a video every once in a while just to show you making these cupcakes and the ingredients, etc. But you don't have to take, bikini photos with cupcakes. I mean, that would be really entertaining and I would like the shit out of that. But like I wouldn't like that's not necessary. The and again, there's nothing wrong with women who do this. It's just their brand and what their expectations are and what they want, and that's fine. But I don't think that that matters anymore. I think that what matters is your voice and what you're saying and what you're delivering. People know when you're bullshitting them, and you can see it loud and clear on whichever platform you're on. So being able to just show up authentically and say like, and when I say authentically, I mean you as a brand, like, oh my god, this cupcake came out terrible. Oh my god, this cupcake came out delicious. Look at this recipe, blah blah blah. It depends. Like that's where you want to show up. Instagram is more visual, so you just if you did have like a cupcake brand, you just want to post really awesome photos of delicious cupcakes. Like you want people to look at these pictures and be like, oh my god, I'm gonna eat my phone because this cupcake looks so good. But yeah, it really depends on what type of business you have and where your audience is.
You know what I want right now?
A cupcake.
Oh my gosh,
Me too.
quit saying cupcakes. I'm going to post a picture of me making a shark cake and I'll post the recipe so that you can like it. So
Oh, a bikini.
no, that will not never happen. So in scuba gear, but maybe not a
That's cute.
bikini.
There you go.
Yeah, but when you look at your own career, where do you want to see it go as an influencer?
So I want to be the Cuban American version of Oprah.
There you go.
Anybody that follows me knows that I'm such a like I love Oprah to pieces. My dream is to be sitting at Oprah's house one day, just like chilling, and we're just having girl chat. And she's just been one of the biggest influences, like the people that I look at for my career. Right, I want to do all the things she does times 10. And so when I look at my brand, I see somebody that I said this once in a TV interview that I did, and I said, we're in a generation where people have the ability to use these platforms for something important. Again, taking pictures of bikinis and like makeup tutorials, all super important, and I'm a big fan of all of it because I buy bikinis and I wear makeup. But at the end of the day, like what is important and what the kind of things that we should be talking about need to be discussed. And if these platforms are giving us the ability to be able to do that, then your job as an influencer is to do the best that you can to only talk about the best. So when I talk about or talk about the future of my brand and my channels, it's I want to serve a higher purpose, and that's going to be the channel that's going to help me get there.
All right. So Jen, you're not horribly far from the Jersey Shore, where where
Oh, no.
where Polly and Snooky have been. I have
Oh
to
god.
ask, due to the nature of this show, the name of it, and my
Yes.
nickname, what is your
Uh-huh.
favorite kind of shark and why?
Um my favorite kind of shark and why it would have to be a nurse shark because I actually caught one when I was a kid fishing with my dad, and they don't do anything. They're really sweet and they're kind and they just kind of pick up garbage on the bottom of the ocean floor.
There you go.
So yeah, ocean nurse sharks.
Well, Jen, it's a special time in the show. Are you ready for the 5 most interesting and important questions that you're going to be asked today?
I'm ready. I'm nervous.
All
I'm
right.
ready.
Being a traveler or being an
Uh-huh.
influencer?
Traveler.
All right. The Jersey Shore or the shores of Cuba?
Oh, the shores of Cuba. El Malecón is where it's at.
Yeah, there you go. Number 3, a
hmm
mojito or a Cuba Libre?
Ooh, a Cuba Libre.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like the
también.
rum. Yep.
Number 5, YouTube or Instagram?
YouTube.
Really?
I mean, I love Instagram. Instagram has grown my brand. But I love being on camera. So like in the next 6 months, like part of my plan for the rest of 2019 is to really blow up my YouTube channel. So yeah, I think YouTube is where it's at. Everybody watches TV and yeah.
Well, and the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
Biscuits or cornbread? Biscuits.
Okay.
Yeah.
They have any Cracker Barrels in Jersey?
Cornbread's really good too. That's a tough one. There should be like somebody should make a combination of two. Like if biscuits and cornbread had a baby, like that would be really good with like extra butter all
The
over
corn
it.
biscuit. Yeah,
Corn,
I mean, after I get done with my shark cake cupcake recipes,
you're gonna make some.
yeah, and I'm gonna change the world with it. So, Jen, where can people find out more about you, follow you on social channels, and more?
You can literally type in my name to lovely Google, Jen Marilla, jenmarilla.com, and everything comes up. Or you can find me on the Social Girl Traveler. That's across everything: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or Jen Marilla, whatever works for you. But yeah,
Perfect. Jen, thank you so much for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
thank you for having me. I had a wonderful time, Kenneth.
So there was my conversation with Jen Marilla, an impact travel influencer, blogger, brand and social media consultant, and founder and storyteller of The Social Girl Traveler. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from my conversation with her. First, so Jen makes an amazing point and reminder in that there is a shift in the form of content. She says, and I'll paraphrase some, I tell people that when you're going to post something, ask yourself, what is the intention of this post? If I'm going to read it, then what am I going to walk away with? Am I going to be inspired, learn something, or buy something from you? What is going to be the end result? That is such a great reminder that we should put out content of value. We unfortunately get caught up in the social and content noise machine to be out there just to be out there thinking we'll be seen. However, never forget that, especially as you begin to think more like a publisher, that you should never take for granted your followers' time. Provide something of value. You won't stand out by only standing and adding to the noise. You'll stand out as a brand and thought leader by helping people solve problems. As she explained, when you start thinking like that, you start shifting the way you're communicating to your people. Great point, Jen. Second, and I'll give you an example. If you took a brand's article of clothing and put it on an influencer, then why should a consumer looking at Instagram view that any differently from an intellectual standpoint than the exact same influencer putting on that same brand's article of clothing? Technically, the influencer is the same, and the article of clothing is the same. Where influencers succeed, though, is that they put the human front and center in the story and show how that clothing affects their journey in life. That influencer then leverages their known voice to tell the story, and they create an emotion and feeling. Many brands fumble that handoff completely when they try it because they believe it's about how, in this case, the article of clothing makes the influencer look better. When you take a customer-first approach, even that perspective can also help you take a look at the influencer much differently and how they're communicating with your audience. Third, so when you figured out that you need to cultivate a community and create engagement, then take a good look at who you hire for managing social media channels. An all points bulletin here, you do not need to hire a 22-year-old because you think that is someone capable of managing social media simply because they are a youthful digital native. Double tapping a photo on Instagram isn't rocket surgery. You should, though, hire someone who is social and who knows how to be social utilizing a simple tool like a social media platform, communicating with your customers and audience. Stop thinking old school and you'll stop putting the wrong people in front of your consumers. That's the problem we have right now. Just look at who manages most social media channels for most brands. Yes, it can appear that most social media managers and influencers who have mastered social media, if you will, tend to be younger and they tend to be female. However, realize that not every one of them is successful, whether they're young or old, male or female. So if you level that playing field and make all of them the same age per my example, then you'll realize that it gets down to the basic point of who understands social and who can engage in a meaningful conversation with a consumer. That's where the brands mess this up. The smart influencers like my friend Jen are the ones who are human and who really know how to foster engagement with a flock of followers. So when you work for or with a brand, make certain to look for someone who at least understands that social is the first and most important word in social media. Create a community, create engagement, and be social. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. It has been my privilege. Again, let's take care of each other a little bit more and be more mindful, and then let's go enjoy a cupcake. And please join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.